Welcome to Motherhood. Whether you're 18 or 80, Dr. Christina Hibbert, clinical psychologist, author, and mother of 6, is here to help you through the ups and downs, the joys and frustrations, the new information from experts, and the stories of happiness and heartbreak from real moms. Remember, if you can, tell your mama to listen too.
And I'll make everything all right.
Here's Christy.
Welcome to Motherhood. It's Dr. Christina Hibbert here to help you overcome, to become, and to flourish in this reinventing experience we call motherhood. And I can't think of anything really that makes us have to reinvent ourselves more times, more deeply, more profoundly than becoming a mother and all that that entails. And of course, that can start off when we first become a mother. But as I've learned through all the different phases that I've been through already in motherhood, it seems to keep coming around. You have to kind of keep reinventing yourself. So we're going to talk about that topic today, and specifically, how we can use creativity to help that. And I think it's a pretty fun and exciting thing to think about. I think it can be a little scary for a lot of us sometimes, but hopefully by the end of today, you'll feel inspired to reinvent yourself in whatever way you're feeling ready to do for whatever phase of motherhood you're in. So I will introduce our guest in a moment. First, I want to thank you for joining us here on Motherhood each week and choosing to grow with us through motherhood instead of just going through it. As you know, it's so much better to do it together here on the show. And I hope that you have joined our Facebook group, which is Growing Through Motherhood. If you haven't, just find it and ask to be added, and we'd love to have you there, as well as connect with us on Instagram. We have motherhood.tv. Also my account, Dr. Christina Hibbert, and Facebook, all over the place, Twitter, wherever you are, we want to hear from you and connect with you. Also, of course, we have the videos. So if you're listening to the radio episode right now and you want to see the video and see what's going on, that's a great way to watch the show. You can do that through YouTube or through motherhoodtv.net. Okay, so as I was thinking about this topic, it's perfect. It's timely because just last night, I resumed my personal growth group in person. So for 5 years, I did a personal growth group here with some of the women through my church. It started off with, and then it kind of became just whoever wanted to come. And we did it for 5 years, once a month for 8 months each year with different themes. And in the 4th year, I decided to take it online. So we started the This Is How We Grow personal growth group online. So we did 2 seasons online, and then I got a little overwhelmed and burned out with starting this radio show and everything else going on. And so we kind of fell by the wayside. But last night we resumed the in-person group, and I'm going to be resuming the online group too. And last night, just talking with the women that were there, this was kind of what we were talking about. And it was interesting because a lot of us were sort of in this phase of, some are almost empty nesters, some are empty nesters. One was, a grandma, and, she's been through all these phases like we've been through. And then there's some like me that are kind of like half and half, and you're sort of in the middle of this process with little kids home, teenagers, and some kids out of the house. And it reminds me of when you are postpartum and you've just had a baby, or you have a toddler, or whatever it might be, and suddenly your whole world is just flipped around, and there's a whole new routine and a whole new way of doing things. And we have to sort of reinvent ourselves around that. I think that's one of the hardest things about being a mom is, at least to me it is how we really do kind of work our lives around our family. I was trying to explain that to my husband because it's not the same for them usually, unless they're like a stay-at-home dad. It's not usually the same for them, but trying to explain, it's not like I just wake up and do what I feel like doing. It's, I have to make sure everybody's handled and taken care of. And then it's like, can I do something for me now? And I think that's one big reason why so many of us do get lost along the way, and why I have so many women in my practice who come in at this time of life where I am, or when they're complete empty nesters and sort of all of a sudden they're going, what am I doing now? Who am I? I don't even know who I am if I'm not taking care of my family all the time. So I think this is a really important topic to continue to discuss, to start discussing today. And then for everybody out there listening, for all of us to continue to re-examine and revisit as we and our families grow older. Because, I mean, the truth is our lives do change and we have to reinvent ourselves in a lot of ways. Maybe you were a stay-at-home mom and then you became a working mom. And maybe, like I said, maybe your kids are all out of the house, or maybe you just had a baby. I mean, it all changes your whole life. So we're going to talk about some great ways to do that and to also let go of some of the losses along the way. So without further ado, let me finally introduce our guest, Ashley Hannah Morgan. Ashley, thank you for being here on Motherhood.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such an honor, and I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Me too. I've been looking forward to this, as I told you when we started, because of the topic and all your ideas on it. So I know you have a lot of great things to share today. So everybody, hold on tight. We're gonna try to get through a lot, and you're gonna hopefully, take notes or whatever you need to do to help reinvent yourself. I'm hoping everybody's gonna be pretty inspired today. So before we get into that, though, let me tell everybody a little bit about you. So Ashley Hannah Morgan is a licensed clinical social worker. She specializes in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and grief and loss. So do I. In 2016, she wrote the Afterglow curriculum and started the first free cognitive behavioral therapy-based support group in Los Angeles for parents with postpartum depression and anxiety. And CBT is a great method for treating those disorders and a lot of other issues that we go through. So hopefully we'll work some of that in today. I'm a fan. In 2017, she published a collection of poetry called I Gave Birth to My Heart. And she's hoping to use that to shed some light on what PPD actually feels like and also what recovery can look like. And I will say you can find that, her book of poetry, I Gave Birth to My Heart, on Amazon. And the week that this show airs, it will be free for downloading on Amazon. So hopefully you're listening to it when the show airs and not later. But even if it's later, you can buy it, but you can get it free the week that the show airs. So be sure to check that out. She's also currently the Postpartum Support International Regional Coordinator for Reno, Nevada, where she lives with her husband and her Shih Tzu, Obi-Wan, and her daughter and her inspiration, Emery Violet. And you can connect with her on her website, which is Ashley Hannah, Hanna, no H, Morgan, with an AN.com, AshleyHannahMorgan.com. And be sure to go there. You can also go on the resources page to view some of the handouts that she uses in her curriculum that you can try, and other useful links. She has a lot of great resources there. So be sure to visit the website and Amazon and look for her poetry book, I Gave Birth to My Heart. All right, let's do this. Okay, so first of all, I mean, I guess you were the one that sort of suggested this idea of reinventing yourself as a mother, and you feel pretty passionately about this. This is something that you want to talk about and you want to share. And so why do you think this is such an important topic?
I have spoken to so many moms and dads who say, I don't know who I am anymore, or I don't know how to get back to me. How do I get back to who I am? And I kept thinking that word back was so interesting. You have to forgive me, I'm an English major and a writer before I became a counselor. So I pay attention to those little gems in there when people are talking. And I just keep thinking, I don't think we go back. I think we're going forward. And, a lot of times in life, we feel like a failure as a parent. We feel like we're not doing enough, or somehow, we're just not being the perfect parent that we want to be, which is really kind of a myth anyway. Nobody's perfect. And so when we can keep picking ourselves up, saying, maybe today I didn't feel like the best mom or the best dad, but I'm gonna make some changes tomorrow. I'm gonna do a little bit better. If we keep picking ourselves back up, if we keep reinventing ourselves, then we're not failures. We're just works in process. We're just kind of tripping along the way, but doing the best that we can. And so reframing for parents, we don't need to go back. We're going forward. We're reinventing ourselves along the way. And it can actually be a fun process. It can be a little daunting at first, like you said, but we can reframe that as this is kind of a fun, exciting time where we get to not only impart to our little ones that you're not a failure if you keep getting up and keep reinventing yourself, like how important is that for their lives, but we get to figure it out with them. So I think it starts with saying, I'm not where I want to be, or I miss some things about my old life. how many of us, the first thing you miss is sleep.
Absolutely.
And then you go, wait a second, I kind of miss my freedom. I miss being able to go to the bathroom by myself, or I miss being able to, just like you said, wake up and say, what do I want to do? I used to have this lovely morning ritual of waking up and having tea and walking my dog and maybe journaling or reading a little poetry. And it just started my day off with such a great mindset. And then after having a baby, you're woken up by screaming.
Right.
Not exactly the same. Peaceful little morning ritual. And so absolutely, there are times as parents where we're constrained by things that are out of our control. I couldn't change the fact that my daughter had a very forceful set of lungs and woke up screaming, even though nothing was wrong. That's just how she woke up for over a year.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, you can't change some of those things, but in small ways, you can start to think, what about me? What do I want to do today? What do I want to do that makes me feel like me again? And even just that thought process is honoring to yourself. It helps you realize, you don't have to not think about yourself at all to be a good parent. It's part of being a good parent is
Absolutely.
self-care.
Oh, it's such a huge part. And we talk about that so much on the show because I think it's so important for moms, especially because we're the worst at it and we don't take care of ourselves. But you made a few points that I want to emphasize. First of all, I appreciate you bringing the dads in too, because this is for all parents. Everybody has to kind of reinvent themselves. It might be a little bit different. I used to always complain to my husband, like, your life just continued on like normal. But really, not totally. It seems like that when you're suddenly stuck home with the crying baby or whatever it might be. But for sure, we all have to do that as parents. And that is something that's important for us to recognize. So, if you have a spouse or partner that wants to come and listen to, this can be applicable for them too. Also, you mentioned some of the losses that we experience. And, I know you teach your clients a lot about some of the myths that come along with motherhood. And I think one of those big ones is that, it's supposed to just be gains and not losses, right? And so let's talk about some of those losses, because I think that's really hard for us, even if we know it up here in our head that, okay, that makes sense that I've lost my freedom and I've lost maybe my sense of attractiveness even, or my sleep or my sanity. It feels like sometimes that I know that that's something that's happening, but it feels like I should just be happy, right? We kind of want to gloss over those losses. So
and society really reinforces that, because every time we see a new parent, we say, congratulations. And it is a wonderful thing. It's magical. It's miraculous. You made a human. Like, that's a huge accomplishment. So congratulations are in order. But when we don't follow that up with an honest, how are you doing? This is hard. When we don't follow it up with real conversations, then that layers on feelings of guilt and shame for new parents who feel like, wait, I'm not as happy as I'm supposed to be. Everyone's just saying, oh, your baby's adorable and congratulations. And it seems like all good things and all gains, like you said. But when we have honest conversations, even just opening the door by saying, this is hard, how are you doing? Then it frees people up to say, you know what, I do have some struggles with this, or I do have questions. There's this myth of the maternal or paternal instinct that you're just going to automatically know what to do with your new baby. And let's face it, some of them are hard to soothe. Some of them have a hard time eating or sleeping. And it's just the basics of life become all consuming. All of a sudden, all you care about is if they eat, sleep, or poop. And,
pretty much.
This idea that you're going to automatically get your baby to latch and breastfeeding is going to be so wonderful. I mean, no one told me, hey, this could be hard and this could hurt for a long time, or there's some things you need to seek consultation on. And so mothers then feel like they're not good enough. They feel like something's wrong with them. They feel like, why am I not this maternal, nurturing, natural figure that I'm supposed to be? And all those things that we put on ourselves. I'm supposed to just know what to do. I'm supposed to know how to get my baby to stop crying. It's too much. It's too much pressure, because truly there is no perfect mother. There is no perfect father. It's a learning curve. We have to read books. We have to ask for advice. We have to learn by trial and error. and every baby's so different.
Right.
So when we can say, no one's perfect, I'm going to do the best that I can, and I'm going to seek help, of course, but we need to let go of that myth of the perfect mother and say, no one's perfect, but I'm going to aim for good enough, and let that be good enough, and give ourselves grace to let good enough actually be good enough and not beat ourselves up. I
That's the
always
biggie.
say to my clients, if the thoughts that are going through your head, the negative thoughts about yourself, if you heard your mother-in-law say that, would you accept that?
Right.
No. Okay. Then
That's
accept it
right.
from your own mind, right?
Yeah.
Be kind to ourselves and kind of let go of some of those I have to be perfect type of mindsets. So I used to be very type A, and I still am a little bit, but motherhood kind of sands that down.
Yes.
You're not going to be able to do it all.
You just can't. Yeah, that's right. That's true. No, that's such an important point. And you're right. All of these ideas in our head, they cause us all these problems, and they make us stress more, and they make us have more problems in our lives. And, a lot of these are, very common, and they're easy to see, especially, like you and I work with perinatal women a lot. And so women that have just had a baby, it's really easy to see a lot of these myths coming in to just becoming a parent and what it's supposed to be like and how you're going to be and all these different things that you just mentioned. And then I want to take it a step further and say, but it doesn't end there. I mean, we carry a lot of those with us, or we might even overcome those because, okay, I get it. I just had a baby. I need to go easy on myself. If we're lucky, we go easy on ourselves and, like you say, practice self-kindness and all these kinds of things. But as our kids grow and they get their own opinions and they make their own mistakes. And then, like last night, again, we were talking about how hard it was with some of the women who had children who have left the house and who aren't really making good choices and aren't really going anywhere in life, and how they take that on as it means I'm a bad mom. So, I mean, that perfect mom thing, that good enough mom thing,
Never goes away fully.
Well, hopefully it can someday, but we have to work on it. I guess the point is we have to work on it forever, right? It's just not, it's so the sooner we start working on it, the better. If we really, really tackle it when we're just starting out or when our kids are young, then we have, like you said, then we can kind of be that model of self-care and self-love and show our children how to be who we are versus like putting ourselves on the shelf and saying, well, I don't have time, or I'm not worth it, or whatever it might be. I'm not going to work on myself because I need to do this for my children. That's what I see happen a lot. And that's where we get into big problems, big problems, because then you're not only thinking it and feeling it, but then you're showing it to your kids all along the way too, because you're not working on it.
Yeah,
right?
two things about that. It's so interesting. There's kind of this myth that self-care is selfish.
Yeah.
On the one hand, that you're a bad mom or you're selfish if you're going and spending time on something that you love. And, actually self-care is really boring a lot of the time. Self-care is like going to the doctor for a checkup or going to the, run errands, or, self-care is like taking out the trash and eating 3 meals a day. Self-care is not always
getting a full night of sleep if you can, right? Taking a shower.
Yeah. There's kind of this image of a mom doing self-care who's like out shopping and not paying attention to her kids. And that's really not it. Self-care, it's like life basics and doing things that you need to be healthy, to have good nutrition, get exercise. Self-care can just be really, really simple and basic. There's an Instagram called Making Daisy Chains, and she has these great cartoons of boring self-care. My favorite one. Yeah, my favorite one is I'm wearing day clothes in the day and I'm wearing night clothes in the night. Actually got dressed, and hey, the day clothes could be like yoga pants and a t-shirt, but at least you're out of your pajamas.
Yes, that's awesome.
So self-care can be really simple. And so that's where we as moms need to start reframing self-care. It's not a big thing. It doesn't take a bunch of, money. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. It can be reframing our small daily actions. Like I'm having this cup of tea and I'm holding it and I'm enjoying the warmth and I'm breathing in the aromas. It can be like I'm going for a walk and I'm feeling the crunch of the autumn leaves under my feet and I'm breathing in the fresh air. It could be really simple things. So this myth that self-care is selfish or it takes a lot of time and money, we just have to let that go, because we have to find small ways to find enjoyment and pleasure in our lives when, as a mom, a lot of it is very demanding and so much is pouring out of you Got to find those small
Absolutely.
ways to pour it back in.
That's right. It's
Um,
easy, so easy to get depleted, and
mm,
that you're making such an important point. It reminds me of the Mother Teresa quote of, doing small things with great love. And that's
yeah.
really what it is. It's, loving yourself enough to take care of yourself, but also not just loving yourself, but loving your family. Because when you're not
Mhm.
doing that, I mean, you're not going to be well enough. And I'm thinking, you just mentioned a few of the things that might prevent us from focusing on who am I now, or reinventing ourselves, or
Mhm.
practicing creativity, or identifying and trying to work through our losses, or practicing self-care, or identifying those
Yeah.
myths, or any of those things. Some of those things, I hear a lot are, like you say, like, I don't have time. Someone in my group last night said that. She said, well, two of them. One person said she's been dying to get back to running, but she just
Mm.
doesn't have time, even though that was her passion.
Mhm.
She used to be a marathon runner, and now she has
Yeah.
5 kids, and she works, and she's like, it's crazy life, right?
Yeah.
So she's like, I just been dying to do that, and I don't know, I'm tired and I don't have time. And then somebody else said, that she had been wanting to, work on herself, and there were some things she'd been wanting to improve, but she didn't
Mhm.
have time because of her work schedule. And I just had to call them out and say, no, you have time. It's just that you're not prioritizing that. If you really,
Yeah.
really thought that was important, or if you really, really needed it desperately, you would have to do
Mhm.
those things. But we don't prioritize it. And we do let ourselves get worn out with the busyness of life
Yeah.
versus like putting those things that are really important first. As Stephen Covey says, like, we do the urgent things and we don't do the important
Mhm.
things.
Absolutely. And it's especially, oh my goodness, if you have 5 kids who are all asking, for your help with homework and different things, or even if you have one, or,
Yeah.
a little toddler that's just chattering all day long, it's hard to remember what you wanted to do. You're like, I knew I had something I was going to do, but she's been talking and I can't remember anymore. It's gone.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's why I really emphasize with moms, find your mantra.
Mm.
So that could be something that is for self-care, for self-love. Like mine was, I'm doing the best I can. When I didn't feel like I was doing a good enough job, I just thought, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing the best that I can over and over. Even when I couldn't get her to stop crying for 2 hours, I'm doing the best that I can,
Yeah.
because you are. And if there were something more that you could do, you would. Moms are like, parents in general, they just go above and beyond for their kids all the time. And yet they still feel like they're not good enough. So
Yeah.
that was my mantra. I'm doing the best that I can. But for other people, it could be like, I'm going to take these 5 minutes for me.
Mm-hmm.
I really emphasize finding a small phrase that you can remember because you're very sleep deprived.
Yes.
Like, this is for me. And
Mm-hmm.
it can be something where you even set a timer. How many times do we sit down to eat a meal and then our children are clamoring for different things and we realize we didn't even eat, we just got up and down from the table. And so, set a timer for 5 minutes. Like, I'm going to sit here for 5 minutes. This is for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, finding your mantra is a way to be intentional about those self-care type of things.
I love
Um,
that idea. And in fact, I just recently gave myself a mantra just for like this point in my life, which is I
mhm.
choose love,
Mm.
because I'm trying to work on, like, I've realized I have some fears and worries, especially again, as kids get older, you worry in bigger ways. And so it's kind of, instead of when I feel the fear, I'm going to choose love. When I'm
Mhm.
getting frustrated, I'm going to choose to love myself, love them. Maybe that means I
Mhm.
need a break. Maybe it means I need to say no to somebody. Maybe it means I need to spend time talking with the child.
Mhm.
But anyway, I love that. So that's a
Yeah.
good starting point. And
Mhm.
so
That's a good
then
mantra.
we can, so starting with a mantra, and then how can, so, okay. First, also, I have to say, back it up before we do the mantra. Like, first, everybody out there listening, you have to choose to do this. You have to just
Mhm.
make a choice in your head that you really, really, you want this, you desire this, that this is important to you, that you matter, that your
Mhm.
health and your wellness matters. And not only that, but that, your existence, your identity, who you're going to be, your life matters.
Mhm.
And so that it's important to you, so that you can then start to take some of these pieces of great advice from Ashley here. So
Yeah.
then
And
what about the losses that we are experiencing, and so let's say people can identify those, or they can identify with what we were talking about earlier. what can we do to start to let those go?
Yeah, that's where finding your tribe is really important. Finding your mom tribe, other people who understand what you're going through, and other people who can say, that is intense, that is hard, that is a loss. Sometimes we try to talk ourselves out of things like, no, it's not that big of a deal. We minimize how we feel. But grief and loss, as you know, it's kind of like it'll follow you until you sit with it for a little bit. Grief is one of the most intense emotions that we feel. It's something that is not easily brushed away. Grief is something that'll just kind of tap you on the shoulder, and it might manifest as anger. It might manifest as sadness. It might manifest as sleeplessness. It doesn't always manifest as, hello, I am grief. A lot of times it's tricky that way, because it really, we need to take time to sit with it. And that's not something we have a lot of as parents. So I kind of like doing a 2-for-1, combating the isolation and getting some validation for the losses you've been through by finding your parent tribe, finding other parents who can identify with the losses because they've gone through them too, or they've gone through other losses that you haven't. I feel like some moms have a really hard time, they have birth trauma, and just hearing from other moms, I didn't go through that, but I can even imagine what you've been through is so healing to hear from other people, just that validation for your loss, for what you've been through.
Absolutely.
And our friends who are not parents, they can sometimes, if they're a good listener, just listen and give you a minute to talk, but they don't always understand the same way that other parent friends do. So really emphasize finding your tribe, and then just being curious with your feelings, because we don't have a lot of time as parents. It seems overwhelming sometimes to say, I'm going to sit and grieve today.
Right.
But we don't always have to deal with everything all at once. I think grief is something that's best dealt with in small doses. And so just when you have those feelings of, I miss my old life, I miss my freedom, I miss my old body, whatever it is, a lot of times we push those thoughts away because we don't have time to deal with them, or they're too painful to think about. It can be really empowering to say, I'm going to be curious about that feeling. I'm going to hold it up like a gem. I'm going to look at all the facets from different angles. I'm going to think about it like, this is something interesting, not something painful, and actually brain research shows that when you start to analyze something with your prefrontal cortex, it makes it less painful emotionally, because it's getting it out of that amygdala area of your brain where we have a lot of fear, and that's where that fight or flight response comes from. So looking at things just through a different metaphor of, this is a gem I'm going to hold up to the light and turn it and look at the facets and be curious about this feeling. And then I'm going to put it away and deal with it later. I feel like so much change in our life so fast can be really overwhelming. And it's too much to deal with it all at once. So I would just encourage listeners to think about dealing with grief in small doses and just honoring it, saying, this is what I've been through, and I'm not the same, but I'm going to learn and grow through it. I'm going to be better through it. And, it's part of life, is making room for new opportunities and new things to happen as we let go of old things as they die away.
That's right.
It's part
That's
of
the beautiful part, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like the seasons, you have to have the winter to have the spring for everything to come back again. And it can be hard, like you say, to want to go into those winters willingly. Sometimes we get dragged in and we have no choice, but to be able to stop and reflect. I love that image of the gem, that kind of, that gives a beautiful visual, everybody, so that you can think about how to do that. And I like the word, get curious about your feelings and explore them, because you're right. We can't change them. We can't modify anything in our lives until we see it and understand what it is. So that's the first important step.
They're so fleeting too. Sometimes we push them away because they're painful, or we're afraid, or we don't know how to deal with it, or it seems overwhelming. But feelings come and go. So that's why another acronym I really like is FLOW. We can feel what we feel at the F. We can label it. We can label it as I'm feeling frustrated right now. I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling lost, or I'm feeling angry. Whatever the feeling is, you label it, because that takes the fear out of it. So you just let yourself feel it for a minute. You label what it is. And then you have the visual in your mind of opening a window to let it go. So that's the OW, flow. Feel it, label it, open the window to let it go. And that just reminds us that feelings come and go. And frankly, the more intense the feeling, the less staying power it has, in good and bad ways, right? When we're ecstatic, when we're joyful, or when we're in the depths of grief. Those feelings almost burn up too much energy. They take too much to sustain for a really long time. So we can remind ourselves that really intense feelings don't last forever. And we can just say, this is how I feel right now. It's going to pass. But kind of that visual of opening the window to let it go was freeing to me. So I hope it's freeing to some of you too.
I love that. I wrote that down. That's a great acronym. I love that. And in fact, I have to tell everybody, so this is literally what we're doing in personal growth group this season. So you can all go to my website and click on the little link for This Is How We Grow Personal Growth Group and watch the videos and learn along with us. We're working on how to understand and feel our emotions and how to let them go and how to deal with our thoughts that get in the way and all these things. So if you want more on that, check that out. Okay. So if we've worked on kind of identifying some things, being willing to work, letting some things go, working through some of the losses, let's focus on the create part of reinventing ourselves, which is the fun part. The other part doesn't seem fun, but it is good because it kind of, like you say, cleans you out so that you're sort of like a weeded out garden that's ready to just, now we can plant some things, right?
Yeah. I always tell people to think about what coping skills you used before, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you think back to your life, you probably have some things that were helpful to you through hard times, right? Like your friend who's passionate about running marathons, or, if you used to always sing in the shower, or, a lot of times there are clues to what will work for us based on things that we've used to help us get through in the past. So for me, I always loved reading and writing, and been writing poetry since I was literally 4 years old. My mom has some scraps of poems that I wrote.
I love that.
I thought it was interesting when I went through postpartum depression and anxiety, and my husband did too. Just so all you dads who are listening know, it affects a lot of times the mother and the father in the couple. But I didn't have any inspiration or creativity in me. I just felt depleted and drained. And that was something that was kind of a loss too. Just feeling like I'm not really my creative self right now. But like the seasons, I had faith that it would come back in the spring or in whatever time however long it took. I had faith that it would come back. And so I think that that's part of the process is knowing that, life ebbs and flows, things come and go. And that if you're in your winter, like you were saying, that, things will come back in the future, and just to hang on to that hope. But that's why I wrote the book of poetry, because it was a creative outlet. And it started really small. It's not like I was writing, Chaucer or Shakespeare. It started small. I was writing in little scraps of poems in the notes app on my phone. I would just jot things down when I kind of felt inspired. And then later, when I had a little more time and energy, I would weave them together. So, a lot of times we don't start the process of reinventing ourselves, or we don't delve into a creative process because it's too daunting. We think we don't have enough time, but you can start small. For some people, you realize, or you think, I don't have any creative outlets. I'm not a creative person. But I mean, even nowadays with our iPhones, people take amazing photos and post them on Instagram. That can be a form of self-expression. Even if you're not super crafty or like knitting or all those, scrapbooking things, you don't think of yourself as a crafty person. If you take joy in just expressing yourself, you'll find it. You'll find that creativity. I think everybody wants to be known. Everybody wants to feel understood and known and validated for who they are. And creativity helps us with that. So in the support group that I lead for moms, on the very last of our 6-week sessions, we do finger painting with the babies. And it's kind of funny because I realized, for some anxious moms, that's not really great because you're getting messy. So we had to contain the mess. Pinterest is great because I learned you can finger paint by putting a piece of paper in a Ziploc freezer bag, put the paint inside the freezer bag, zip it up, and then the babies smush on the paper through the paper
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that. Someone discovered that.
That's great. Yeah. There's
But
creativity.
yeah, you can find inspiration from other people too.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, there was a tangible thing that we made with the babies, and something that I feel like art and creativity gives you a sense of accomplishment because you often do have something tangible to show for it. And it helps contribute to that feeling of being a good mother or father because you've done something educational and artistic with your child. So, even if you're not creating a masterpiece, Van Gogh or something, you can do small things with your children that are a creative expression. And hey,
Yeah.
sometimes it just feels good to get messy too. So feel free to do the
That's
messy
right.
version.
That's right. And that's so
Yeah.
great. I mean, doing it together and even from a young
Hmm.
age with the baby, because you're not only bonding with the baby and you're also getting that benefit for yourself, but then you're modeling and showing them
Hmm.
to be creative in their own right and take
Yeah.
joy in your whatever, like you said, being able to take joy in whatever you need to do to express
Hmm.
yourself, to be seen, to be understood. And
Yeah.
because I can hear a lot of people out there thinking, well, I'm not creative, because you
Right.
hear that all the time. But you're right, absolutely, we all have that. I mean, we're moms, so we are
Hmm.
creative. I mean, think about all the things you do all
Hmm.
the time to improvise a diaper when you need to, or whatever it might be, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, give yourself some credit, and then start to think about what you used to do, maybe as a
Yeah.
starting point. Okay.
Yeah. And also, you could think about, like you're saying, all those mom hacks that you come up with. That's why I think so many moms start blogs or write books, because you realize, oh, I'm improvising these things. I'm coming up with little tips and tricks that would help other moms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where having your tribe of mom friends, other people you can share those things with, that's a form of creativity and self-expression too. And it doesn't have to be something that's stereotypically creative. It can be pouring into your relationship. So I would just encourage listeners to really rethink and reframe how you express yourself, what creative self-expression looks like for you. And you don't have to be good at something to do it, right? You could be singing in the shower or in your car, and it's just a way of letting your feelings out and expressing yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
Not to mention, singing helps you breathe and just
Yeah,
let out some of those intense feelings that you're going through. Or it could be good bonding for you and your baby.
absolutely. When I after my fourth one was born, which became my sixth one because we inherited my two nephews, I had a lot of grief. I had postpartum depression. I don't know. I had like everything, I
Yeah.
thought. But
Yeah.
I had always loved to sing, and I had taken voice lessons for years. And so after several months, I decided to resume the voice lessons, which happened to just be in Phoenix, which is 2 hours from my house.
Oh, wow.
So I would either leave the baby with a babysitter for those hours, or
Mhm.
I would take her with me and leave her at my mom's and go do my voice lesson. And it was
Good
just
for
so
you.
healing, not only
Yeah.
to take the time because you're showing yourself that you matter because you're giving yourself the time and the space, but also, yeah, the singing was just, it tapped into grief that I didn't even know
Mhm.
where it was. It was just, I mean, I would sing and then I'd go bawl in my car, and it would be
Mhm.
like feeling good because it would just be this
Yeah.
letting go of all this emotion. So yeah, I highly recommend that. And also I'm with you on the writing thing too. I mean, when I wrote This Is How We Grow, it started as little bits, 10 minutes. I made a goal, 10
Mhm.
minutes at night after the kids go to bed. I'm just going to write nonstop and just write for 10
Mhm.
minutes. And then a lot of those things became, some of the essays that I put into the book. So
Yeah.
giving ourselves time and space and starting small, and you don't have to do some
Mhm.
masterpiece, but like you say, those scraps can become something down the road
Mhm.
if you want them to be, or maybe they're just part of your process at the time, and that's good too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it could be your own personal time journaling, and that's a form of self-expression and
Absolutely.
creativity.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, starting small, and that incremental change is so key in this process because we don't have a lot of time. But if you start somewhere, then eventually you'll get somewhere. You
Hmm.
And then it's something you can share with your kids too when they get older, that you created this during this time when life was hectic, but you carved out these moments for yourself. And I think that's something that gives us a sense of pride as moms too, a sense of self-efficacy,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
self-confidence. So it's really about being the best that we can be for ourselves and for our kids. Because if we're going through the motions, I think, we're all just doing the best that we can. But I think our kids can tell, and we all say we want our kids to be happy when they grow up, and so we have to figure that out for ourselves first.
Mhm.
So much of
Absolutely.
reinventing yourself is just finding what makes you happy each day, and trying to channel that into being a good mom or dad.
Absolutely. Well, and that segues perfectly into what I was just thinking and what I want to touch on as we're getting near the end of our time, which is, this doesn't have to be about when we talk about reinventing ourselves. Sometimes it is that you are going to, write a book of poetry, or you're going to do something. But sometimes, and most of the time, really, it's also mostly about who we're trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that personal growth aspect of, yeah, like you say, being the best parent we can be, channeling, finding what makes us happy, what makes us healthy. Um, and that's something that, and I guess that's what I mean when I say we're always reinventing ourselves in some way, or I hope we are.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, then you're probably kind of like stuck somewhere. And maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
time to start going, maybe it's time to reinvent myself in some way. So I feel like, once we get to where we think we want to be, that might last a little while, and then things in our life will change. And then it's like, oh, okay, well now what? And then we get to do
Yeah.
it again. But as we mentioned at the beginning, even though it can be daunting, it can be this kind of fun and exciting process of
For sure.
either looking back to what you used to love and starting there, or looking kind of today and what you might need right now, or what you feel like you're missing, doing that exploring
Yeah.
with the gem of your feelings
Yeah.
to give you some ideas. So
Mhm.
what do you suggest for those who are thinking, um, I don't necessarily, like, I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I know who I am with my career. I know who I am as a
Mhm.
mom, but I don't know. I feel like something in me probably needs to change.
Yeah. I bring with me a background of working in hospice. I worked in hospice for 7 years before getting into working with perinatal mood disorders. And I feel like I have such a rich foundation from the seniors that I got to work with. My oldest
Mm.
patient was 103.
Oh, wow.
And I had a handful of centenarians who were just precious. I love them to pieces. And
Wow.
getting their life perspective was so, so valuable and enriching, because they also had a lot of losses throughout their life. And at the end of their life, some couldn't walk or couldn't do as much as they used to do. But I
Hmm.
would sit with one of my centenarians, and she wanted to play Scrabble, and that kept her mind sharp. But I noticed that they all just adapted to the new season of life. The ones that lived the longest and were happy, they kept adapting to their new seasons and the new challenges. It's not that they didn't have moments where they were sad or they wished that things were different, but
Hmm.
they just kept adapting. And I thought that's how I want to be. So no matter what age you are, we're never stagnant. We're never stuck. Like you were saying, each new day brings new opportunities. So I would really encourage people to keep that in mind, that we have this one precious life. I don't know if we get more than that, but all we know is we have this one life,
Hmm.
and we've got to make the most of it. And we really don't know how long we're going to live. We don't know how long we have on this earth, but we want to make the most of it, whether that's living with great love, choosing love every chance that we get, um, or just being kind to the people that we meet. But there's always this little voice in the back of my head that's like, okay, someday I'm going to be 100, and if I'm lucky, and I might not be able to go skydiving or do whatever it is. And so I just encourage you to keep that perspective, that we don't know how long we have. And so
Hmm.
if today were your last day, what would you want to do? Maybe it sounds cheesy, because maybe we're all going to live 60 more years and it's no big deal. But if today were your last day,
Yeah.
what would you want to do? What would you want to experience? And that's what I used to ask each of my hospice patients too. What would bring you joy today?
Aw.
Their choices were very limited, but what would bring you joy today? It could be some chocolate ice cream. It could be
Right.
going out for a walk. It could be,
Reconnecting with a family member, a loved one. I mean,
yeah,
something simple, but those are really the
yeah,
things that bring us the most joy. It isn't the skydiving and all those things. Those are
yeah.
fun, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we do have these like secret wishes and desires and things we want to do that we put on the back burner because we think they're not practical.
Yeah.
But when we have that mindset of I have this one precious life, how am I going to make the most of it?
Hmm.
Then maybe we will pencil those things in. Okay, I'm before the end of this year, I'm going to go do XYZ, or before my next birthday, or
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think it's great that we celebrate New Year's and we celebrate birthdays, because it's a chance to reflect on the last year and think about what we
Mm-hmm.
want to do for the next year. So
Absolutely. It's a chance to reinvent yourself. All those things are,
yeah,
if we take it to be, you
yeah.
can always kind of be tweaking or figuring things
Hmm.
out in a different way, or you might need a whole overhaul at some point, which is good
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. And if any of you young parents out there who are listening are thinking, I would love to have a senior in my life, all hospices take volunteers, and a lot of them you
Huh.
can bring your kids with you.
Well, that's
And it
great.
brings so much joy to seniors. And then it kind of gives us that perspective on life too, that like,
Oh,
that's where we're headed. And oh my gosh, we can learn so much rich parenting advice from them too. I had
so great. Yeah.
one little lady who was like, yeah, my husband and I just took turns rocking the baby all night, and we didn't have baby monitors back then, so we just cut a hole in the door and would peek in, and baby, oh
Oh.
my gosh, so wow, we have it a lot different,
Wow.
like
Yeah, no
easier and harder in
kidding.
some ways, but
Oh my gosh.
you know
My grandma's actually 101 and my other grandma is
incredible.
94. So
Wow, you've got good genes.
I do. I feel like I've got good genes. My grandpas both died,
Yeah,
but
longevity genes.
yeah, the women tend to live long. So yeah, I'm
Mhm.
hoping to take after them. But this is great advice. And
Yeah.
for everybody out there listening, to also, yeah, another way to get out there and reinvent yourself.
Mhm.
Service is another great tool for that,
Yes.
to help others, to connect, like you said, find your tribe, but also I would add to that, and I think goes along with what you're saying, is just find what you have to offer and give
Mhm.
back.
Mhm.
We did the second whole year of our personal growth group was on finding your purpose and
Yeah.
meaning in life. And at the end of it, there was like kind of a simple solution, which is that everybody kind of has the same purpose at its core. All of our purpose is to love in some way. It's all about love. It's just, how are you going to express that? Are you going to be a teacher, or are you going to, go and sit with people who are older than you and just give them company? Are you going to rock babies? Or, are you just
Mhm.
going to be a great friend? What is the thing that you feel like you can give back to? And of course, if you're just had a baby, or if you're in a time of your life where it's totally overwhelming, I am not telling anybody to go out and just, go
Yeah.
serve. I'm saying once you get to that point, when you feel
Yeah.
ready, that's another great way to reinvent yourself, giving back.
Mhm. Mhm. And if you're an introvert and that sounds like too much output, that's okay too.
Yes.
Introverts can
Yes.
also serve, you know,
Absolutely.
in different ways. And sometimes people are more comfortable behind the scenes, and that's okay too. But
Absolutely. Yes. Great point.
yeah, yeah. But that's what helps too about finding your tribe of parent friends, is you see people that are a little bit further down the path than you are, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, they're starting to get out and volunteer or serve. Oh, maybe someday I could do that too. Or they're
Mhm.
just starting, to get out and travel. Okay, we're going to be able to do that again soon too. And so it gives you hope.
That's
I think
true.
that's what I would just want to leave people with is, as long as you have hope in your life, then things can move and change and grow. And that's something that we can lose sight of when our lives kind of shrink after having a new baby, or we get stuck in our bubbles, because life is hard with kids sometimes. But just
Mhm.
hang on to that hope that we're always in process, we're always growing. And if things aren't happening right now, they might happen. Just give yourself some time, and make those small incremental changes. They'll happen in the future.
Absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
that's great. I know there's so much more we could share. And actually, I wanted to share your quote that you sent at the
Yeah.
beginning, but I feel like we'll just end with it because it's so
Yeah.
good. So, do you
Mhm.
have that handy that you
I
can share?
do.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I honestly forget where I found this, but the writer of this was Rajneesh, and he said, "The moment a child is born, the mother is also born. She never existed before. The woman existed, but the mother never. A mother is something absolutely new." And I
Oh,
love that, because it's just
gives
like,
me chills.
hey, we're all as we enter this new motherhood season, we're all becoming something new, and that's a hard thing, and it's a beautiful thing, and we just have to find our balance in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, very well said. I guess that is the perfect ending spot. So Ashley, Ashley Hannah Morgan, thank you again for being here and for all of the wisdom that you shared. And
My
of course,
pleasure.
everybody, make sure to go to her website, Ashley Hannah with no H, Morgan. .com, and also to Amazon to find her book, I Gave Birth to My Heart. Again, that will be free to download the week that this airs. So be sure to check that out either way. And all those other great free resources. You also have the Postpartum Daily Vitamin, which I
Yeah.
forgot to mention at the beginning, but how can people access
Yeah.
that or find out about that?
Oh, I sprinkled it in with some of that. Find your mantra, find your tribe,
Oh, okay,
be
gotcha.
curious. And then number 4 and 5 are be truthful and be kind to yourself.
I love that.
Yeah, but that's a handout on my website as well if you go to the
Okay,
blog section.
great. So go to the blog section, go to the
Yeah.
resources section, and you can find out more. Thank you again, Ashley. And everybody else out there, I hope that you take to heart what we've been talking about today and get inspired. Hopefully you're already inspired from listening. But, just take one thing from today that you might consider. Maybe the one thing that you take is, I really do have some losses I need to start working through. And maybe the one thing that you take is, you know what, I really do need to pull out something creative and start looking into what I might love to do. Whatever it might be, just again, start small, like we said earlier, and grow from there and continue to do it with us here on Motherhood, I hope. So until next time, everybody have a great week, and we will see you next time on Motherhood Radio. Bye-bye.